Okay. For those in the public who've been trying to access on the YouTube and experiencing audio difficulties, those were real. We had some problems with our technology in the council chambers that transfer the audio into the YouTube stream. For that, we apologize, but we did figure it out thanks to some of you who have come forward through email to let us know that there's a technical problem. So just in summary, I gave a brilliant speech at the beginning of the meeting, introducing everything. And someone's not muted. Someone mute yourself. And now, now that that was one of those Pulitzer-winning speeches, I want to just summarize that we did have a delegation from Scott Patterson who addressed council on the subject of phase 2 of the Maitland River Estates, and that council, as you may have seen from the previous live stream video, put forward a resolution asking staff, directing staff to come back with further report on the financial implications of the various options related to the Maitland River Estates. So that's where we sit. Brilliant speeches by all. And now we move forward with the rest of our meeting. That brings us to agenda item number 5, which is reports from departments and key staff. First, let's turn to agenda item 5.1. For item 5.1, we are asked to consider mandating staff to send a letter of support to Enbridge Gas related to the provision of natural gas services to the hamlet of Molesworth. Mr. Snell, North Perth CAO, will offer a few comments about that report. Yes, well.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. As Council is aware, the Government of Ontario has announced phase 2 of the natural gas expansion program. Molesworth was our submission for the first phase, which we did not receive, and it was in joint partnership with the municipality of Huron East. Again, Huron East and us have had discussion about expanding natural gas to Molesworth. As Council is aware, we earlier this year submitted our support for the Moncton project, and at this time we're just seeking Council support to also include in our support an application by Enbridge to bring natural gas to the hamlet of Molesworth. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillors, if any of you would like to answer or have answered any questions, please indicate through the chat window your intent to ask. Seeing no indication of same, for your consideration, I have a resolution then that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to provide a letter of support to Enbridge Gas Inc. for the expansion of natural gas to the community of Molesworth as part of the natural gas expansion program. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to serve as our mover for that one?
I will move that for you, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen is our seconder.
Yes, I'll second that, Mayor Todd.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, please indicate through the chat window if you feel so inclined. Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. For item 5.1.2, Council has provided a report from Community Development Coordinator Kim Couch pertaining to actions to establish a local online marketplace for businesses and vendors in North Perth, directed by the Mayor as part of our emergency response to COVID-19. I have Ms. Couch with us tonight. Kim, welcome. Would you like to offer a few comments on this?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Further to my report, I just wanted to share that e-commerce is an area that is increasingly required and utilized by customers, and that was initiated by the COVID-19 pandemic and for some businesses, but as recommended through the teleconferences, the business and agricultural teleconferences, having a joint or group e-commerce marketplace was proposed. Initially, the focus was local food, we, as it was explored, realized that there was great opportunity to expand it to other business within the municipality. And we have moved forward and have started to initiate an e-commerce platform or marketplace within North Perth. There has been strong interest from business in the community, all different sectors. We are progressing, and the involvement at this point is free for businesses, and it's going to have a style similar to Etsy or to Amazon, versus some businesses may currently have an e-commerce platform that would just be for their specific business. And by e-commerce, we mean that enables the business to offer payment and ordering and arranging for delivery services through their website. So it really opens opportunities for cash flow and for business maintenance during this time, but it sets them up really well going forward to move potentially growing their business well beyond our borders into the region and beyond. So it's a great opportunity. We just wanted to share some information, answer any questions that you may have, and I think that addresses what I wanted to share. If you have any questions, please.
Thanks, Kim. Any questions from councillors? Please indicate in the chat. Councillor Barons?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Just a couple of questions. I think it's a great idea. I'm question what the long term, or if we're looking at this long term, what the costs would be. I am assuming that this is a cost that will be filled under economic development special projects or something along that line, or where are we getting the cost for all of this? And I recognize that initially it's going to be free, but it is an extra service that the municipality is providing. And how does that work into the long-term aspect of it? I realize it came about because of COVID-19, but this is something that could potentially be expanded beyond the pandemic. So I'm just wondering what the process is for all of that.
Okay. Kim, did you want to respond to that?
Well, I think for initial term, we felt that it was worthy to help support the recovery of businesses, to have it as being free. As you see, there is an annual fee. Some of the initial startup fees would not continue, but that would be something that would be brought to council or to Economic Development Committee for their review and consideration. I think it might be considered to look at a fee going forward, but I think we would need to look at the interest and participation, and after the first year to make good decisions on that.
Thank you. Councillor Barons, anything supplemental?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Anstead.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg, and thanks, Kim, for the report. Very well done. I noted in the report you mentioned Stripe is going to be handling the payment side of things. What developer are we going to be using to get this all set up and get off the ground?
The name of the developer is Chrysalid, and it's an international firm that specializes in marketplaces. So that was one reason why it's been so fast in getting it ready. E-commerce sites can take quite a bit of time to pull together, just even for one business, let alone for a multi-site. So we're using this firm that had a template. We've made some adjustments. We've added in a special landing page for vendors, like a vendor listing specifically. So we've made some adjustments to it, but they specialize in marketplaces, and that's who we're looking to for the development.
Okay, thank you. And supplemental, if I may, Mayor Kasenberg. And then just looking at the costs, Kim, that's $6,000, almost $7,000. That's the annual fee for the website.
Correct.
So every year it would be $7,000. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have Councillor Richardson next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you, Kim, for the report. Just wondering, also looking at the cost, I think, number one, I think it's a great idea for the interim. Like, we do need to support our businesses as much as we possibly can during this unprecedented time for everybody. But I also heed the warnings that we need to also be as prudent as what we possibly can with everyone's money in doing this. I'd understand that everything is interconnected, but I do feel that there needs to be some sort of looking into the future, that after COVID has passed or to a significant point, that there does need to be some costs involved in that, because there's some significant expenditures like over the course of every year that will continue going forward. The other question that I had in here was just, it specifies logos and branding for $1,410. Could you provide a little bit of explanation on possibly logos and branding there, and what is actually involved in that, seeing as how they all reside electronically anyway?
Sure. So we did request from a local designer 3 different potential designs, both in horizontal and vertical format, so that we could use it on the website itself, but also in future promotion and marketing. And we did also ask for the current Torch logo to be in a transparent format, so that we could use it within the site, but also used for other uses while we were at it for the municipality. So it was kind of a detailed request, as we want to make sure that it's presenting a modern and but welcoming kind of an image to, and more of a business and professional image to the site, as well as reflecting the municipality's involvement. So I think that was what we were going for, and so that was the cost for providing that service, and all of the following logos that we would have that to be able to use in print material as well as on the website going forward, so that we can promote that in different like the Home and Lifestyle Show, for example, or different recruitment events. We can use that for products. So we just wanted to make sure we had a comprehensive palette of logos that we could use going forward.
Okay, Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Kim, for the great report. And as someone that has a retail store in another small town, I think this is something that's fabulous. North Perth is getting out ahead of the game to try and support our businesses, and I'm 100% in favor of this, because I believe that the way we market products and sell products is going to change forever due to COVID. And a lot of businesses will change how they're going to open their retail business, their retail stores going forward, and doing a lot more online. So I fully applaud everyone that's been involved in this. And I know there are some startup costs and things, but I think if we get this going, it will be a great boon to our local businesses. So I applaud everyone involved, and I'm fully behind it.
Thanks, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Kim, for your report. I think it's very forward-looking and so on. My question is this: we always have to be careful about our procurement. Does our policies currently being into emergency allow us to streamline this, or are we making sure that we're in compliance with our procurement policies to go about this in terms of direct contact with who we want? Thank you.
I think maybe I'll ask CAO Snell to respond to that one.
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly, one of the powers that is given to the mayor and the emergency control group during an emergency is some freedom to spend resources in response to the emergency, and this was seen as a direct response to the COVID situation. I think, as Kim discussed, we will have to look at how this is used by our business community and reevaluate after the first year and decide then how we will finance it going forward. But I would say the response so far has proved that there's a need in our community for such a site. We have modeled this actually after the Grey County Farmers Market. So it's already being this type of market's being used successfully already, very in a local example, and we would like to see this continued. And I think it's one way that we can actually expand our farm gate and our local food going in the future, as well as any other products that we have to offer that could be sold internationally.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I'll take note today that John Tory, the mayor of Toronto, issued a media release indicating that they are intervening in exactly the same way we are. We have them beat in terms of performance on this matter by at least a month, which is kind of exciting. Certainly, there's opportunity there, and other communities are seeing that opportunity as well. So, any further questions or comments, councillors? All right, I have a resolution for our consideration just related to the report that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report entitled E-Commerce Marketplace Website dated May 11th, 2020 for information. Can I call on Councillor Anstead to serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as seconder?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. So, Councillor Behrens, we haven't trapped your vote.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. So that's carried, noting, of course, the abstention of Councillor Andreessen for purposes of declared pecuniary interest. Thank you. Next up then is item 5.1.3, and this is further to an earlier request made by Council. Council has provided a report from CAO Chris Snell pertaining to the actions undertaken by the municipality to implement the approved strategic plan for the corporation. It will not come as a surprise, I think, that implementation is delayed as a result of mustering all due resources towards the declared state of emergency related to COVID-19. Chris, did you want to say anything about this report?
I can touch on it briefly, and certainly just before I leave the last agenda item, I'd like to thank Kim for all her hard work on bringing forward the e-commerce site. It's a tremendous amount of work for in a short period of time. But with regard to the strategic plan, as the mayor said, it's really sort of taken a back seat over the last 8 weeks, and really based on the new schedule with us bringing the implementation plan sort of mid to late June, and then having development business plans in place by department business plans in place by September. We really are looking for this to be a tool during the budget 2021 cycle, and we'll certainly are using the strategic plan in our day-to-day decisions. And for example, I know Lyndon has shared it with the traffic consultant as we do our traffic master planning. So we're still using the plan, but some of the formal, more immediate, detailed documentation is just falling behind because of COVID. That's my comments. Not prepared to answer any questions.
Thank you, CEO Snell. Councillors, if you have any questions at this point, please indicate that in the chat box to the clerk. Seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the Strategic Plan 2019-2022 Implementation Update Report dated May 11th, 2020 for information. And I call on Councillor Duncan to serve as our mover for that.
So moved.
And Councillor Johnston is our seconder.
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you. Council, the opportunity for discussion or debate. If you wish to engage in such, please send a chat note to the clerk through the chat window. And Clerk Bearfelds is shaking her head no, which sounds like it means that we're ready to have the vote. So let's have that. And we have, that's carried. We have everyone reported through eScrap. That's great. Thank you. And CAO Snell, thank you for your reports. Next up is item 5.2. For item 5.2.1, we are asked to consider recommending to County Council a revision to an earlier approved site plan application from MHBC Planning related to the property known colloquially as the Nickel Subdivision. Mr. Gundrum from the County of Perth Planning Department has been working on this file, and he's welcome to our meeting now. Say hello, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Mayor, members of council, good evening. So the report that I'm going to present concerns a proposed modification to an existing draft approved plan of subdivision. So this application has been submitted by MHBC Planning Limit on behalf of the owners Nickel Properties Incorporated relating to County File NP 18-02. The modification concerns lands described as part of Lot 16, Concession 1, as well as part of Lots 29 and 30 on Plan 430 in the Alma Ward. Subject lands, as Council may already be aware of, are located on the west side of Mitchell Road South, south of the roundabout located at the western edge of the Liskell Ward. Just for background to this request, draft plan of subdivision NP 18-02 was reviewed and considered by the county in 2018, and on August 2nd, 2018, County Council granted draft approval for the plan of subdivision to be developed in 2 stages. Fast forwarding 1 year from that time, on August 1st, 2019, County Council granted an initial first request for modification to change conditions, which modified the original approval with regards to unit count and density count, as well as a few other matters as detailed in the background section of our report. So the report that's being presented tonight concerns a second proposed modification to the existing draft plan approval, which is currently in effect today. The owners of the subject property are seeking that this new modification to the existing draft plan would split the existing stage 2 of the plan of subdivision into 2 new parts, being a revised and smaller stage 2, as well as a new stage 3, which would contain the remainder of the original stage 2. This new staging is outlined on the last schedule of our report. The modifications here are proposed to expedite final approval and registration of stage 2, while the new stage 3 would continue to be developed. The proposed partition of the existing staging is intended to facilitate bringing new dwelling units to market more quickly. Specifically, the units that would be contained under blocks 1 and block 2 of the new proposed stage 2 being composed of approximately 6 townhouse lots, and as well as a range of 86 to 136 multi-residential units on block 2 of stage 2. The total unit count and overall density of the entire subdivision would not be changed in any way should County Council adopt the proposed modification. Just for Council's additional information, the new stage 2 would have both frontage and direct access onto Mitchell Road South, while stage 3 would be developed such that its public road connections would be made via both stage 1 and stage 2 of the plan. The requested changes are anticipated to positively impact the short-term ability to supply new housing for the municipality of North Perth in response to demand which has been documented in our report based on data which has been obtained from the municipality of North Perth Building Department. specifically with regard to areas that are found immediately adjacent to the listable ward to the west. The requested modification to the existing draft plan approved plan maintains consistency with both the provincial policy statement as well as the County of Perth official plan, and also continues to maintain the core intent of the existing draft plan approval. As such, the planning department is in support of the proposal and are recommending that the Municipality of North Perth Council recommend to County Council that the proposed modification to file NP 18-02 be approved. We are currently planning to bring the matter forward to County Council at their next meeting on Thursday, May 21st. And I'd be happy to answer questions that Council may have. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Gundrum. Councillors, any questions for Mr. Gundrum? We also, just for Council's note, do have Mr. Pierre Chauvin from MHBC Planning in attendance, just in case you have questions pertaining to this application. So any questions, please indicate your interest in asking through the chat box in the interface. We understand that Councillor Behrens had a little bit of difficulty hearing David tonight. Councillor Behrens, did you have any questions that you want to ask to follow up on this?
No, I'm simply experiencing some sound difficulties. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Councillors, any questions or comments? Okay, I have a resolution then for our consideration that reads as follows, that the Municipality of North Perth Council recommend to the Council of the County of Perth that the application for modification of draft plan of subdivision file number NP 18-02 submitted by MHBC Planning Limited on behalf of Nickel Properties Inc. affecting property described as Part Lot 16 Concession 1, part of lots 29 and 30, Plan 430, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth be approved. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, would you second that?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Again, use the chat window to indicate your desired comment. Seeing no indication of that, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Pierre, thank you for joining us. Looks like we didn't need your wisdom tonight, but we appreciate you being here. I think that brings us to item 5.2.2, wherein council is asked to consider a site plan associated with construction of a new car wash and appropriate lot improvements further to that initiative, proposed by Harsal Petro Limited. North Perth planner Sean Yilmaz will provide us with a briefing on this request. Mr. Yilmaz.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. I hope everyone is well this evening. Application for site plan approval SP 15-2019 submitted by Harson Petrol Incorporated is proposing an addition of an automobile washing establishment on the subject lands, which is currently home to an existing automobile fuel establishment. Petro-Canada has historically operated on the subject lands, which are located on the southeast corner of Main Street and Mitchell Road, which is the roundabout there. The existing Petro-Canada site at 880 Main Street West and the property to the east, 830 Main Street West, have recently consolidated to provide sufficient space to add the car wash drive-through to the rear of the existing gas station convenience store. The subject lands have a lot frontage of approximately 70.3 meters or 230 feet and a lot area of approximately 5,349 square meters or 57,000 square feet. The subject lands are within the highway commercial designation of the Listowel Ward official plan and is within the highway commercial zone of the North Perth zoning bylaw. The highway commercial zone permits automobile washing establishments as well as the existing gas station. All zoning provisions have been met, including appropriate vehicle queuing and privacy features. Vehicles exiting the car wash will be required to make a right turn only onto Main Street, as a no left turn sign will be posted. A noise study was also completed, which I do apologize as I forgot to reference this in the report, but the study noted that noise levels are considered within the MECP guidelines and that noise from the street traffic is likely louder than the noise from the car wash. Certain building materials have also been recommended, which will help contain the noise, and it is to be reviewed prior to the issuance of a building permit. The municipality's chief building official, municipal engineer, fire chief, public works department, and the North Perth planner have reviewed the site plan drawings as prepared by GM Blue Plan. The drawing contains the information required for a complete review. Adequate access, lot grading, drainage, privacy features, and automobile queuing is provided as shown on the site plan. As such, it is staff's recommendation that the council proceed with the adoption of the bylaw authorizing the mayor and the clerk to enter into a new site plan agreement and have it registered on title. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Councillors, any questions on this application? Please indicate in the chat box your interest in speaking. Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, I'm just noting that under the top of the bylaw 66, they're noted as Harsol Petrol, and then in the resolution under number 1 and number 2, they're noted as Harsan Petrol. Just a difference in the name.
Yes, indeed. And the agreement is reading Harsan. Thank you for that. That's how it's showing in documentation with the signature in the draft agreement. So it appears to be Harsan Petrol. My apologies, Council, as well. I was relying on what information was available to me. So thank you for that. If Deputy Mayor Kellum, you have a question?
Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you. Sean, so I see they're only using a portion of the land that they have purchased. Looks like there's going to be quite a large amount of vacant land. Any idea what they plan on doing with that?
A good question. They actually don't have anything planned at this time. They just wanted to acquire it for the car wash. And when we asked about them doing a lot addition, rather than the consolidation, they wanted to consolidate the properties over a lot addition. But at this point, we don't have any specific use that they have at least let us know about yet at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Deputy Mayor Kellum apparently shares a brain with me because that was my question, and I'll ask a supplementary if I might. That lot looks like it could use a little bit of remediation. The balance that property is, I think, currently gravel covered, weeds sometimes. So I'm curious about what those next steps are. Sean, again, you sort of said we don't have any insight into that, but I guess I'm expressing concern more than a question that that lot be tidied up a little bit. I think it would be in the interest of our community to see that happen.
If I can just add to that, yes, I don't, without any specific use, we haven't actually reviewed anything with regard to that site, but it's definitely noted, and anything in the future, we'll definitely consider that.
Thank you. Councillors, I have a resolution for our consideration. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve site plan application SP 15-2019 submitted by Harsan Petrol Inc., affecting property described as part lots V and W, S over S Main Street of Plan 194 as INR 122-128 880 Main Street, Listowel Ward, and that council proceed with the adoption of the bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to enter into a new site plan agreement and have it registered on title of the subject property. Can I invite Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for that?
I so move.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you second that?
I will second that.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, don't even think about asking me to read those letters and digits again. That was quite a mouthful, that one. All right, Council, any questions or debate, discussion at this point? So indicate through the chat window to the clerk. Councillor Rothwell, would you like to ask a question? Comment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Todd. Further to comments made by the Deputy Mayor and yourself, perhaps Planner Yilmaz can talk specifically about any authority that the municipality, as part of the site plan agreement itself, can address in terms of property maintenance issue on the easterly balance of the property to ensure compliance with perhaps property standards, among other things. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. That's a good question. Sean, we have Sean with us. We also have our CBO here in case we want to there. So why don't we start with Sean and see what we learn?
Specifically at the agreement again, if there's anything specifically addressing that. However, this part of the site makes up the entirety of the site, the whole subject to site plan control. As such, you can see the privacy features extend to the east of the property, not where the gas station ends, but actually where the property ends. So it would be the understanding that this entire property is under the agreement.
Okay, does that mean that they will act to remediate or ameliorate the conditions of the remainder of the lot?
I can't say that that is the specific case as per the site plan agreement. We had never discussed anything specifically regarding the future use or upkeep, specifically in addition to what's normally included in our site plan agreement.
Okay, maybe I will redirect then to our Chief Building Official, Ed Podnowitz. Ed, you have any comments to make about this one?
Yes, Mayor Todd, I could provide some input. I would suggest, as if there is a property standards issue, we would need a complaint form filled out and we could act on that. But I would suggest we could have a discussion with the proponent prior to issuing the building permit and just ask them if they would clean up the site as part of the construction project, level the property off and keep it maintained. That would probably be a practical way of dealing with it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rothwell, anything further on that one?
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thanks to both Yilmaz and CBO Podnowitz. I believe the Chief Building Official's comments is a worthy suggestion that we could follow in terms of ensuring that the developer understands that maintaining the property is not only good for themselves as a business, but also in terms of a gateway or entrance into the west side of our municipality in terms of the listable ward. And I would encourage staff to have those conversations, and I hopeful that they would be fruitful. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. I completely agree. Anyone else wish to discuss or debate? This has been duly moved and seconded, so let's have that vote. That is carried. Thank you. And now we have a bylaw pertaining to this same subject. That bylaw number 66-2020. We should ask people to put themselves on mute, just in case. That bylaw number 66-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a site plan agreement with Harsan Petrol Inc. be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. I invite Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for that one.
Yes, Mayor Kasenberg, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstedt, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one, please indicate your intention through the chat window. Seeing no indication of same, let's have the vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. Let's see here. I think that brings us to item 5.2.3, an interesting item. Very interesting item. The planner and the clerk have been diligently working pursuant to regulations provided by the province of Ontario to establish a protocol for the conduct of public meetings for various matters related to the Planning Act. I'll ask North Perth Clerk Patricia Bearfelds for an overview of this matter. Ms. Bearfelds, just let me adjust my settings here.
Actually, Sean and myself have been working together on doing the research and coming up with a solution for North Perth to be able to proceed with public meetings for planning applications. I'm basically going to ask Sean to follow through and explain this report. We've had several conversations with some of our local municipalities, as well as looked in on several other municipalities that have actually moved forward with the process. There's not a lot out there. What we have done, though, is we've looked at it from the point of view that we're trying to be able to make our meeting accountable and transparent to everyone, whether you write in, you call in by telephone, or you join us, just similar to as Pierre Chauvin has tonight and Scott Patterson received an invitation, was able to join our WebEx meetings, which we'd like to invite the applicants to do as we move forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean. And I think as well, based on a conversation we had with the Perth County CAOs and clerks last week, our CAO may also have comment. So I'll turn it back to Sean.
Thank you. So yes, at last week's council meeting, I provided an update with regard to planning and the provincial direction and regulations that have been released. I won't go into much detail again, but the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has encouraged municipalities to process planning applications where possible. However, no municipality is obligated to do so. Again, this has been solidified with suspended Planning Act timelines. In other words, council does not have to make a decision or review a planning application until such time they deem appropriate and without fear of an appeal for a non-decision. So the province, however, has also made clear that municipalities can move forward with applications and hold public meetings remotely, so as long as appropriate measures and tools are utilized, which ensures all residents have an opportunity to speak to an application. Since this council expressed interest last week in learning more about what the process could look like, a process was drafted, which is included in the staff report, and a sample notice of public meeting has also been prepared and included as an attachment. The sample notice of public meeting is the letter that is sent out to the public to notify residents about an upcoming public meeting. So to simplify the process, the modified or remote process will allow the public to connect to a public meeting through several ways. The meetings will continue to be live streamed, and for those interested in viewing the meeting, but not directly participating, they can connect through the existing Municipality of North Perth Council YouTube channel. For those interested in participating in the meeting, there are several ways. The municipality will utilize WebEx, an online meeting and video conferencing tool. This allows for participation by both computers and smart mobile devices, as well as a landline telephone. Basically, a WebEx link and password or a WebEx telephone number will be issued to the speaker prior to the meeting. Although in-person council meetings have been canceled, the public can provide submissions to members of council for the upcoming meeting in several ways. This includes submitting comments in writing, submitting verbal comments that would be transcribed at a public meeting, or register to speak at the public meeting. This can be done through a computer, smartphone, and tablet, or through a telephone and a dial-in number, which is all hosted through WebEx. Several registration cutoff times have been included in order to ensure comments and those registered make it onto the agenda in an orderly fashion. An information sheet with instructions regarding access and connecting to the meeting through the phone or a computer will also be included in the notice of public meeting that is sent out. Alternatively, in very rare situations, we could also look at permitting a limited number of people into the public gallery. This would be where extenuating circumstances leave no other options, and with further confirmation from the public officer of health or the health unit prior to this option being used. Since remote public meetings, as per the Planning Act, is a new concept, no set standard has been provided with respect to what the notice of public meeting being sent out to the public needs to look like. The only thing that I seem to find was within the environmental registry notice that was released by the province. A section at the end states that the notice of public meeting needs to outline the virtual location and explain how participation can happen. Now, some Ontario municipalities have moved forward with scheduling remote public meetings and have drafted notice of public meeting templates. Some of these existing examples influence the North Perth template, and then a further review of new templates have also indicated that the North Perth sample is quite consistent with these other municipalities. I have communicated with both the county planning department and the other local planner. The county has indicated that they are taking a measured observation approach of other municipal practices before deciding on a method with which to proceed. I did not get any official response from the other local planners, from the other local planner, but at the last conversation I had, there was no immediate plan to move forward with the process to host remote public meetings. Now, speaking on behalf of Perth South for a moment, which is the other local municipality that I provide planning services for, there is no outstanding applications or push at this time for planning applications, so no formal decision has been made or staff recommendation has been provided regarding hosting a remote public meeting. Now, putting my North Perth hat back on, I have received several calls regarding concerns, and specifically monetary concerns because of held up applications. Not all these applications are solely held with North Perth, as some of them have official plan amendment applications that are currently with the county. But nevertheless, that is what is guiding the staff recommendation today. Staff has been actively reviewing correspondence from both public bodies and private legal firms regarding policies, regulations, interpretations, and advice. For example, OPPI, or the Ontario Professional Planners Institute, has been careful in their advice and guidance during this time. Various questions and answer forms have provided some insight, but again, there is no specific guidance for what a municipality is supposed to do. Some planning departments have shifted away from planning altogether to assist with pandemic efforts, whereas other departments, including North Perth, have shifted to a remote and virtual setting. The ministry has stated that they are starting to see a lot of different ways municipalities are moving forward with remote meetings, and I believe the approach we have put forward today is comprehensive and meets the requirements to qualify as a public meeting as per the statutory requirement of the Planning Act. I do want to reiterate that this is a council decision and there is no obligation to move forward with planning applications and holding public meetings. But if this council elects to move forward, we could implement the proposed process and use the sample notice of public meeting that was provided with the report, and of course, make any necessary revisions deemed appropriate. One last point that I'd like to make is that a modified process for public meetings with remote access could likely become a more of a standard approach as we move away from the pandemic. Regardless of moving forward with remote public meetings following tonight or holding off until further notice, I do believe that having these remote capacities embedded in our public meeting process will be beneficial moving forward. Thank you, and I can take any questions if you would like.
Okay. Thank you to Sean and to Pat. All I can say is outstanding work. Very careful. For council's benefit, I spent some time with Dirk Bearfelds this morning trying to shoot holes through this and didn't find all that many, to be honest. So I have to admit to being quite impressed with the effort that's been put forward here to keep planning services moving in our community, if that's what council's will is. I believe CAO Snell would like to weigh in on this.
Thank you, and I certainly would also like to thank Sean and Pat and Ed for their work on preparing us for this future. As Pat just mentioned, the 7 CAOs, along with a number of the clerks, met last Wednesday regarding several issues, but this certainly was one of the agenda items. And I would just like to suggest that some municipalities are feeling no pressure to move forward because, as Sean said, they have no applications. The town of St. Mary's has a public meeting already scheduled for their first meeting in June, I believe. And so we're all at different stages of requiring this tool. What I can say is we have tried to make the process similar amongst the 7 of us, but they are not the same. And mostly the big reasons behind that is we are using, many of us are using different council software, as well as most of us are using different platforms to broadcast our council meetings. So although very similar, not everybody's process will be exactly the same. So that's just my comments tonight.
Thanks, CEO Snell. Councillor Behrens. We're not hearing you, Julie. We're not hearing you.
Sorry, my apologies. Just a few questions and concerns. And I think you have done exceptional work. So to Ed and Pat and Sean, this is actually incredible. And I understand from Sean that we have a number of applications that are waiting, and this is why we're wanting to consider it. My only concern really is that if people want to go to LPAT, they have to make comment at the meeting. As we have seen many times, and we've been through this scenario of the technology and the technical difficulties and things crashing, and I know we can't plan for what could be the inevitable, but my concern is what happens if we have a public meeting and someone has a technical difficulty, or we do, where they did not get the opportunity to be heard. And I noticed in all of the, that's my first question, but in my second comment, in all the notices, I think it would be important that we put in, you must make comment at the meeting in order to appeal. And highlight it, do whatever you have to. And maybe that way we'll get people to write in. But I know in being in the public meetings, often people weren't sure they were going to make a comment, but then because of something that they heard within the meeting, they made a comment. And I'm just not clear how that aspect is going to be dealt with. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Behrens. I think Mr. Yilmaz has ability to respond to this one, Sean.
Yes, it is a good question. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought here. Basically, there's a couple ways we can approach it. Yes, we do want people to submit comments prior to the meeting, but as you mentioned that sometimes there could be technical difficulties or somebody who might have something that comes up during the meeting might have a comment. And a suggestion that we could always do as well is at the public meeting, we could do a first and second reading and then come back to the subsequent council meeting and potentially do the third and final reading. And it gives you that week or whatever timeline to either generate more comments or if something was missed. That's just one of the ideas that I was thinking of that could be a potential solution. But in theory, we do want people to comment ahead of time so we have a good understanding of who provided that comment rather than finding out last minute. But again, with these public meetings, you never really do know.
Thanks, Sean. And to me, that approach makes sense. That was certainly drawn my attention before this meeting. There certainly is an opportunity for due caution there, which might be appropriate, at least as we start rolling this out, if council so decides. I think that, like anything, this would have a pilot meeting where we try it. And if we run into technical difficulties of people not being able to even use the phone number, I think there'd have to be a lot of patience that night for us to figure out how to resolve those technical problems and make sure that people are heard. And we can certainly, as you've heard, use an approach where we can bring first and second reading to any initiation, any initiative, and bring it forward 1 week just to make sure that we've covered off the opportunity for everyone to have their say. Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thank you to Sean as well as Pat and Ed for the report. Very comprehensive. I appreciate that. I have a series of questions here. The first is specifically regarding, we talked about Planning Act applications, and clearly North Perth Council is going to deal with any local official plan amendments or zoning bylaw amendments, but the Committee of Adjustment, it was mentioned at our previous meeting, has a number of applications and they've had to postpone their meetings. Is the proposal that the Committee of Adjustments meeting would be public as well? And if so, are members of the Committee of Adjustment set up to be online and have that support process behind them?
I'm going to ask Clerk Bearfelds to answer this one. Just give me a minute to reconfigure my audio so we don't get some nasty sounds here. Hold on.
So as council is aware, you did adopt a bylaw amending the procedure bylaw for boards and committees last week in a council meeting. That allowed the remote opportunity to happen now for boards and committee to participate remotely. I've had conversation today with the IT department as to how we can proceed with making the meeting public, following an opportunity with North Perth Council to practice if we can or move through one application. Then at the same time, we're hoping parallel to work with the members of the Committee of Adjustment to number one, ask them, their citizens helping us out, that if they're comfortable in this practice, and then based on how we work it with council, then we'd like to see if we can remotely work it out with members of the committee.
Thank you, Pat, through you, Mayor Todd. My next question deals specifically with the fact that the majority of our Planning Act applications do have public involvement, but for the majority of the applications, we have no other than the applicant. So but we have no guarantee that that's in fact the case, and we don't know exactly whether we'll have one person or 20. That's my concern or observation that I'll just put through to council and staff, is that I think we might want to be very cautious moving forward, and I think we have been in here. I note in terms of the draft notice of remote public meeting, it is very comprehensive, and I suggest through to you that we have in the past had enough problems having people actually read a one-page notice of a public meeting, let alone 3 pages. So I'll put that out there as issues of concern, but again, these are unprecedented times. So thanks again for the report.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. And you know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I think that we have to be thinking about the possibilities now and into the future because I have to admit, I agree that the writing is on the wall with regards to more use of virtual technologies for councils and its committees. I think this experiment largely has been successful. You know, it certainly has had hiccups, but it's working. And so I suspect that the province will make allowances for us to move forward. The province has been notably silent in the details of this one, which is why we're filling the gap. And while we won't be the pioneers, the very first ones to do this, we will be early adopters, and in part because we have things happening here and applications that are deemed to, or we're being asked at least to have a look at. So I hear your concerns, but I also think that there's a good opportunity here. Anyone else, Clerk Beerfels, that we need to hear from at this point? Okay, so Council, I have a resolution here somewhere. Let's find this. All right, so for our consideration, we have two resolutions, in fact. The first is that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received a staff report titled Land Use Planning During an Emergency Order in Ontario, dated May 11th, 2020 for information. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to serve as our mover for that one?
So moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, would you serve as a...
Yes, I would second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion or debate? And the clerk is saying nothing is showing in the chat window. So let's have that vote. And we're missing someone. Councillor Behrens, we're missing your vote.
I am in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And then I have a second motion that relates to this. I'm not sure if it was in our submissions. Was it in our report earlier? We had it as one. We split it into parts. All right. So we've split this into parts, Council, just so that you understand that we're taking two separate actions here. This for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorize staff to proceed with holding a statutory public meeting under the Ontario Planning Act using remote technologies and the modified process. I invite Deputy Mayor Kellum to be our mover for that.
Yes, I would move that, Mayor Todd.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, would you second that?
I will second that. Thank you.
All right. Any discussion or debate on this one? This one's actually authorizing us to move forward. Councillor Rothwell?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Todd. I just wanted to pick up on one comment that we had said earlier, and on this resolution is that this would be a one statutory public meeting to make sure that we're equally adept at dealing with this process as opposed to a grouping. Is that correct? And secondly, I just want to pick up on the fact that you mentioned about having, and Clerk Beerfels mentioned about having a training session before this. And again, I would advise that I'm understanding is that this is a singular public meeting for the first one. Is that correct?
Clerk Beerfels is giving me the yes nod. So yes, I think the way the resolution is written as well suggests that this is a pilot type initiative, and we do want to give it a try, use our process, and make sure that if any bugs come up, we have the ability to troubleshoot those and improve for anything further that we would do.
Thank you.
Any further items with regards to debate or discussion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. Thank you, Council. Next up is item 5.2.4. which seeks consent from council for exemptions to the so-called sign bylaw to allow the installation of more marketing billboards. I'll ask North Perth Chief Building Official Ed Podniewicz to introduce us to this matter. Mr. Podniewicz.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Todd and members of council. Before you, I've presented a report on a request we received from Chris Tecomte from Top Outdoor Signs. I believe you'll recognize the name from approximately a year ago. He came forward and I prepared a report, and I believe it was for 7 billboard signs at that time, which council did approve. So he is asking for an exemption to the bylaw. They're proposing to place 8 billboard signs at various locations in the municipality. And as noted in his letter that's attached in the package, the proponent has had great response from local business operators on previously permitted billboard signage, and has generated interest from additional local business owners for this type of advertising venue. So in the comments, I just want to bring your attention to items or sections from our sign bylaw dealing with billboard signs. So basically, out of the 8 signs, 2 of the signs do not meet they exceed the maximum width, and those are the signs we basically need the exemption on. The other 6 signs would meet the requirements of our sign bylaw. And those 2 signs are located or identified as sign number 4 and sign number 5 on the information package that I supplied with my report. And I believe those ones are located on 986 coming in from Molesworth to Listowel. The other remaining 6 signs meet the sign bylaw requirements for size and area. So based on the proponent's request letter, and I've taken that into consideration with the statement by the proponent, this type of advertising venue is desired by local businesses. I based my recommendation in regards to this proponent's request as such, and the recommendation would be for Municipality of North Perth to approve the exemptions. I'll take any questions that council may have.
Councillors, any questions for Mr. Podniewicz? Please indicate through the chat window to the clerk. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Through you to CBO Ed. Can you give specific details? The 2 of the 8 that don't meet. I mean, this is the same proponent. Does he say specifically why they cannot have the same standards for those 2 signs to the west of Listowel as they have on the other 6 locations on Highway 23 and Perth Line 86? Just seems odd to me. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Mayor, Councillor Rothwell. I believe from the last request that we dealt with a year ago, there was a variety of sizes at that time as well. And I'm assuming it's just a business plan that some people or some businesses require a larger area, and I'm sure they pay additional for that. But I'm assuming that's the reason why we have such a mixture of different signs. I believe most of them are 24 by 8, but there are some 16 by 8. So just based on what they've submitted, I would assume it's just a business plan that they have in place to offer a variety.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Rothwell?
Just one other question here. We had asked a year ago as to whether or not there was a coordination between the Ministry of Transportation and the county, as well as the municipality of North Perth, because some of these signs are going to be MTO and they need their approval, and some are going to be the county approval. Were we looking at to ensuring that we have the same sort of standards, or had that process, is it completed or not started yet?
So through you, Mayor, to Councillor Rothwell. I didn't forget about you, Councillor Rothwell. I remember that question from the previous request that we had. I am currently working on our sign bylaw. There's some amendments to it. I'm trying to incorporate some requirements for electronic signage, which was another topic that came up recently. And probably next council meeting, I will have something in regards to electronic digital signs. But in regards to the other, we do have a section in our sign bylaw that talks about permits from MTO and county. And I think the way it's written in our sign bylaw, I kind of like the way it is because it says that permits are required from those two authorities. And I'm afraid of trying to make our sign bylaw in regards to billboards and other types of signs consistent with their requirements for permits, just because of the fact that if they amend their sign bylaws or their requirements, then we may not be aware of that. So this just basically the way our sign bylaw is structured now, it just says that it has to meet their requirements. And I think that's the way I'm going to answer that question for you, Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you very much.
So let me just follow up on that just to make sure I've understood the answer. There are occasions when we would give our consent and then we'd have to, or the applicant would have to go to the county and get consent from the county as well.
That's correct, Mayor Todd. They have to get, we require a permit from the other authorities, whether it be the county or MTO. I need to have both of those in my hands before I would consider issuing a building permit for, or sign permit for any type of sign that requires those authorities.
Okay. So it does make sense to at least consult during your review of the sign bylaw that the county and the MTO standards that pertain here, right?
That's correct. By the county or MTO authorizing a permit to be issued, basically what they're saying is that they meet their requirements. And as such, then as long as they meet our requirements in regards to what we have in our sign bylaw, which is basically the width of the sign and an area, that we could go ahead and issue the permit on those bases.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Alan kind of stole my question on me, and I know take me back to when we did our entrance signs. We all went through this, and I know I found some different locations, but they didn't fit because they were too close to another sign. It didn't meet the distance from the county, and so we couldn't go with that site. So I know the county does have some guidelines, and I don't know if that'd be probably 10 years ago. So whether they've changed it now or not, but I know we had great difficulty just putting our own entrance signs up because they were trying to find locations to meet the distances with the county. And I'm not too sure about the MTO. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Seiler. I have a question or two myself. With this, if we were to approve this, how many total roadside signs would we have approved in North Perth?
Well, thank you for that question, Mayor Todd. And you sent me out on a fact-finding mission today, actually, when you sent me these questions earlier. So I did actually take a drive out through the municipality, just on the main roads, which would be Road 164 and Line 86. And so I traveled both directions from Molesworth to Palmerston and from Moncton to Listowel. So what I came up with was a total of 33 billboard signs that we have in the municipality. I did actually look to see how many signs were actually advertising North Perth businesses. 24 of those 33 are advertising North Perth businesses. The remaining 9 signs are advertising a right to life, some religion, and some neighboring municipal businesses on 9 remaining signs.
Okay. And with regards, I mean, I probably could do this my mental math is not as good as I'd like it to be. I have to admit. I'm sure my grade 8 teacher would be very frustrated with me for that confession. But what's sort of the sign density, the number of signs, the number of people per sign in North Perth, or some kind of measure like that?
Well, thank you, Mayor Todd. I actually performed that calculation for you as well. So based on our current population and based on the number of billboard signs, I did the math on there, and so it worked out to one billboard sign for every 440 residents in North Perth.
Thank you. And do we know anything about neighboring municipalities and sign density in those communities?
Well, thank you, Mayor Todd. And yes, I did actually reach out to a couple of different municipalities. So we didn't, as far as density, they really couldn't give me a fixed number on like the type or how many signs they have in their municipalities. Our neighbor, Minto, actually circulated out to them or contacted them. They actually don't issue permits for billboard signs. They rely totally on the county and MTO to issue the permits. So, I mean, if somebody applies for a permit for a billboard sign in Minto, they have to go through one of those two authorities, and Minto really doesn't have a say, or they don't care to have a say in the signs. The other area I reached out to was West Perth. He couldn't give me exact amount or number of signs they have, but their sign bylaw is basically the same as ours. They will issue permits if they meet the sign bylaw. If they're over the size, such as what we're asking for here today, then they would have to go through council for an approval.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Johnston notes that he's had to exit the meeting for a brief period. We hope he returns. Okay, seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve an exemption to the Municipality of North Perth sign bylaw 117-2014 to allow the placement of billboard signs at the following locations: 5927 Line 89, 8891 Road 164, 8585 Road 164, 6599 Perth Line 86, 6330 Perth Line 86, 5266 Perth Line 86, 5126 Perth Line 86, and 5058 Perth Line 86. Can I call on Councillor Richardson to serve as our mover for this one?
I will move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, is there a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Please indicate to the clerk if you're interested in the comments. Okay, seeing none, let's have that vote. Where are we at? Councillor Rothwell, we're not registering your vote. What say you? Oh, did we get it? We got it now.
I just voted, but I had a question, but I'll forego that. I didn't think that we needed to have all those locations. I thought my understanding is that they were only having two sign exemptions. That's what I understood, but
Fair enough. That wasn't my reason for voting no, but I hear what you're saying now. All right. Thank you, Council. That's carried. So let's move to item 5.3, I believe, is up next. We have no reports indicated from our interim manager of recreation. That brings us to item 5.4. Our accounts statement serve as item 5.4.1. I note that certain councillors who declared potential pecuniary interest in this matter will not be voting on this item, namely Deputy Mayor Callum and Councillor Barnes. Are there any questions about our report on accounts? Councillors, please so express through the chat window. No questions are being indicated. So that brings us to our proposed resolution that the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total on the bottom line is $901,980.97. And I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for that.
I will move that, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen. Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Please indicate in the chat window. Seeing no indication, let's have that vote. And that's carried. Thank you. Item 5.4.2 provides council with information about the financial status of the corporation as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic period. I'll ask North Perth Director of Finance and Treasurer Frances Hale to address this matter. Ms. Hale, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. Certainly with the COVID situation, we have a number of financial considerations that have to be taken into account. From the onset of the pandemic, the municipality has been complying with the advice and direction from the Huron-Perth Public Health Unit. In doing so, municipal services have been modified to ensure public and staff safety. Steps taken to implement HPPH's recommendations, both internal and externally, for the organization have resulted in some additional municipal expenditures and revenue losses. The municipalities purchased personal protective equipment and products to ensure that the public and staff are safe. There's been additional cleaning for those facilities that are still housing staff, as many are considered essential under the current provincial definitions. To meet the social distancing requirements, updated software and connectivity applications have been employed to ensure council and staff can continue to operate virtually and effectively work from home. This is now up and running and has been noted this evening on a couple of occasions. We're still experiencing some technical difficulties, but each time we use it, we seem to improve. And I think we're all looking to the fact that in the future, this investment will not be going to waste. With the economy stalled by the closure of many businesses and resulting job losses, council recognized the immediate need to support our municipal customers. It is anticipated that the federal and provincial levels of government will provide needed financial support to those people and businesses that have been adversely impacted by the pandemic. Any income redistribution is better and more fairly handled by the other levels of government. In the short term, however, council has waived penalty, interest, and non-sufficient fund charges, as has been mentioned in prior meetings, from March the 24th to July 31st on all accounts receivable. This is to give our customers an opportunity to access provincial and federal assistance if needed. In compliance with provincial regulations, some municipal services have been reduced and modified, resulting in some layoffs and redeployment of staff. As well, most seasonal staff hires have been deferred. In an effort to help local businesses survive in this environment, our mayor, CAO, and community development officer have arranged business community conference calls to identify needs and offer assistance where possible. As a result, this evening, you have considered and approved the e-commerce solution as has been arranged. And one of the other aspects of this is in a go for that the municipality itself might be able to use this to receive payments in the future as well. We have more opportunities with this to explore for sure. Provincial announcements relative to financial matters for municipalities include the deferral of property assessment updates to be on hold until 2021, leaving 2020 values in place for another year. Property assessment requests for reconsideration and assessment review board appeals are extended until after the emergency declaration is lifted. And Ministry of Education levy payments for municipalities are deferred until later in the year. COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in havoc throughout every aspect of our lives. Physical, mental, financial health have all been impacted. Staff are working with colleagues across the county, province, and associations to share ideas and strategies to respond to the resulting financial and operational impacts. For the municipality of North Perth, our capital projects have been reviewed by staff, and we're proceeding where possible to complete the projects outlined in the 2020 budget as approved by council. A number of operating revenues and expenditures are expected to be impacted. While it is still too early to quantify all of the effects, some of the areas for review are considered. So just looking under our functionality, similar to how we budget, under administration, as was mentioned, the waiving of penalty, interest, and insufficient fund charges has an estimated reduction in revenue of about $2,625 per week. So we're in our 8th week now. Total accounts receivable balances, however, have not increased as our municipal customers are trying to keep their accounts current. And we certainly appreciate that and have been working with them to ensure that if they wanted to sign up for pre-authorized payment or make payments ongoing, we've been accommodating that as best we can. School board and possibly county levy payment deferrals will provide additional cash flow in the interim. Prime rate reductions result in reductions in our investment income. And unfortunately, this is a significant impact. We're seeing it being about $25,000 a month. Increase in technology expenditures to ensure public and staff connectivity and continued productivity. Estimated costs right now at $20,000. Certainly, as you're aware, this might change over time, and believe that the investment is still in our favor. Personal protective equipment and products purchased for staff, some for emergency daycare, will be recovered from the province, and others distributed over all the departments results in fractional costs. Currently, we have an inventory on hand of about $15,000 worth of product, which will not expire for some time and will be used in future operational processes, as we were predicting this kind of product will be used for some time. Emergency daycare costs are being covered by the province of Ontario, including administrative overhead. Building department staff are still completing inspections and reviewing building permit applications. They are holding residential approvals until the order is lifted. And right now, probably holding about $30,000 worth of permit fees once they're able to let those go. As was noted tonight, and I haven't included in this report too, some of our planning applications will be able to move forward possibly, and therefore our revenues in that regard will be ongoing as well. At this point in time, we don't believe, but we're uncertain as to whether our police contract might be impacted, and supplemental property taxes might be delayed, and additional write-offs might result from economic disruptions that are occurring in our municipality. Some BIA projects have been deferred and staff are working from home. With regard to our library, the facilities are closed and staff have provided virtual services instead of in-house programming. Some minimal cost savings from closed facilities, including utilities, products, and cleaning. Some reduced and redeployed staff cost savings. Fire operations are essentially with some increased costs for additional PPE and some short-term savings in training and conference expenditures. Public works operations are essential and maintained with some increased costs for PPE and social distancing, some anticipated cost savings for conferences, mileage, fuel prices, etc. Environmental services operations are essential and maintained with some increased cost for PPE and social distancing. Some anticipated cost savings for conference mileage, fuel prices. Additional staff for landfill site to manage social distancing balanced out by additional revenues. As well, the reduced prime rate provides good terms for our long-term borrowing for the wastewater treatment plant, currently offering 2.38% for 25 years, just exceptional terms. Recreation facilities have been closed and therefore no revenues are being generated. Some staff have been reduced and deployed to other operations such as landfill and project work for cost savings, in addition to utilities, paper products, cleaning supplies, etc. Analysis of the gradual limited opening of facilities in terms of public utilization versus cost to meet the distancing and sanitization costs requirements will be necessary as we move forward. Council and staff are working together towards establishing the appropriate policies and procedures necessary to keep the public and staff safe as we are currently operating and as we start to reopen some of the facilities and restart some of our programming that has been curtailed. In the coming weeks, quantifying the financial impacts of COVID-19 operational impacts will be completed by all department heads, and I have been reassured on a number of occasions that everyone's watching how the changes that they've had to implement are working. And at this time, our review is still very speculative, given we do not know the longevity or severity of this pandemic. For short-term financial relief, the municipality has an emergency reserve fund that could be accessed to cover any net losses. Staff are making every effort to minimize operating costs where possible. And I would be more than happy to try to address any questions that council might have at this time.
Councillors, good update from Treasurer Hale. I think we have questions from Councillor Rothwell. Let's start there.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Fran, for the report. I appreciate that. I had a question, and they both involved the same section there on page 1 of your report. My understanding is that when the province allowed municipalities to defer submission of the school board levy, they were, I think the quote or the word was urging municipalities to defer or give property owners a reprieve in paying their taxes between 60 and 90 days. Are we doing that, or are we required to do that if we are deferring our payment?
Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, it's my understanding that we've managed this in a little different way, in that we're not penalizing anyone who doesn't pay their billing. We have maintained our planning at this point in time, maintaining our current installment dates, but we have been lenient on not penalizing or charging interest on any outstanding accounts. It's kind of one and the same. At the end of June, we will be bringing back a report to council for further consideration of that penalty and interest charge and non-payment or insufficient fund charge. So I think there will be further consideration and a revisit on this whole idea, because if that does go forward, then and we aren't going to be charging that, then certainly it would be to our advantage to take advantage of not paying the school board at that time. But I think the other thing is we all are looking to cash flow, and if the school boards are needing that cash flow at that time, then I think, I think we have to do what financially is the most prudent for all levels of government, whether it's the school boards or the county or ourselves.
Thank you, Fran. Just further, you mentioned about the county. So the county councilors, has there been discussion or have we requested deferral of county levy to the county? Because I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Kiesenberg, in discussions with the county treasurer, he advises me that he will be taking that topic to county council for consideration.
Thank you.
Any further questions on this one? Okay, seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows, that the COVID-19 financial considerations report be received by council for information as presented. Can I call on Councillor Anstead as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, would you serve as seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If there is, please indicate your desire to speak in the chat box. And seeing none, then let's have that vote. And is Dave absent or stayed back? So who are we missing? Councillor Johnston, what say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. And so that's carried. Thank you. Item 5.4.3 invites council by bylaw to grant authority for the promulgation of a transfer payment agreement with the province of Ontario, further to our successful proposal to the province for funding from the Municipal Modernization Program. I'll ask, again, North Perth Director of Finance and Treasurer Fran Hale to address this matter briefly. Fran.
Yes, as the successful applicant for the Municipal Modernization Program, the province has asked us to enter into a transfer payment agreement, and the bylaw provides for authorization for the mayor and myself to sign the agreement and move forward with this project.
Okay. Thank you. Councillors, any discussion or questions at this point? Okay, seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration, bylaw resolution that reads as follows. That bylaw number 67-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an Ontario transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of the province of Ontario, represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the province of Ontario, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be passed, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk. I invite, let's see here, where am I? Councillor Duncan, you might be up. Would you be our mover for that?
So moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston.
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Councillors, please indicate in the chat window if you wish to discuss or debate. Seeing no indication of that, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. We have, moving on then, we have no indication of report from our Manager of Environmental Services tonight, but as always, our appreciation for the hard work done by the members of that department. For item 5.6, let's turn to item 5.6.1. Council is asked to award the tender for the purchase of a tandem plow truck. Mr. Couch, our Manager of Operations, will lead us through this one. Welcome, Lyndon.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, members of council. The existing unit in the Atwood shop, I've listed at just in the background, has 9,600 hours. It's a 10-year-old unit and is in need of repair. It's past its regular asset life cycle. And as per the report, bids were open on April 24th. You can see it was an extremely competitive bid process. The review was a little bit more involved in terms of the actual costings of the vehicle. We know that the lowest bid from Expressway didn't include the attachments that were required, which is why it represents so low and was not considered valid. The next two bids were virtually identical, 0.04% apart, $120 on a $319,000 bid from Team Trucks and Jerry's Truck Center. In review of the servicing of those two units, it was the servicing costs and travel for service that really carried the day in terms of representing the recommended reward to Jerry's Truck Center, which has a service depot here in Listowel, as opposed to the other trucks which were in London service depots. So if we wait out the warranty period and the cost to drive down with a couple operators and a travel truck back, it would more than offset in the first visit to go with the second bid, which was only $120 over. And the recommendations in front of you for the Jerry's unit at $319,895.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Councillors, any comments or questions at this point? Seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth award tender NP 006-20T to Jerry's Truck Center, 4049 Eastgate Crescent, London, Ontario, N6L 1B7 in the amount of $319,895, excluding applicable taxes. Deputy Mayor Kellum, can I call on you to serve as our mover for that one?
I so will move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson as our seconder.
I will second that.
And now discussion or debate, and I'll call on Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Lyndon, what kind of a truck is it, and what did you go with the transmission?
Thank you. It's a Volvo unit with a Volvo engine and transmission set. We're actually looking forward to testing this out. In part of our review, we did look to some other municipalities that are neighboring who carry this truck or are looking to purchase units, and we had a solid review both on the cabin chassis and the transmission unit. And as I said, looking forward to trying this one out. Again, it's a Volvo.
Did you go with the automatic transmission?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The automatic was spec'd for all machines. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Where are we at with this? We need to call for the vote. Yeah. Okay. So I think we should have that vote. Let's have that vote. And that's carried. It's sort of a yay about buying a new plow, right? It's kind of exciting. All right. We have no indication of reports from our fire chief as item 5.7. That brings us to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or committees? Again, to request the opportunity to make those requests, please so indicate in the chat feature of the web conferencing tool. Councillor Behrens?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you, I would, there's two projects that have been kind of ongoing that I haven't seen a whole lot in the past about. The first one happened actually a couple of years ago now, where a group from Wallace Ward came forward and proposed a history book. And I was just wondering if at some point in time before September, if we could possibly get a brief update on where that project is at. That would be my first request. My second request is I noticed in the accounts we're still doing accounts for the community of character. And I know our acting director of recreation, Amy Gangle, is well involved in that committee. And I'm just wondering if we could maybe have an up-to-date report on the community character being under their own official title and not using the North Perth services. Thank you.
it's me. Oh, it's me. It's terrible. It's me. Told you, mayor's going to make mistakes. That was me. I was on mute. All right. So let me follow up. I'm being laughed at now, folks. Let me follow up then. Is anyone on council strenuously opposed to those reports being brought forward? If so, say something in the chat window to us so we can consider that. Otherwise, we'll put a resolution on the table to direct staff to those reports. Okay. So it doesn't look like any councillors are that concerned about this. So why don't we formulate a resolution that staff be directed to bring us reports on progress for the history book for Wallace Ward and on the community of character and accounting services and related to the municipal service provision. Sound right, Matt? Update on the community of character should probably cover what we need there. Operations and financial matters. All right, can I call on Councillor Rothwell to serve as our mover for that?
I so move.
And Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder for that?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Yeah, you got something for us? All right, let's have that vote. And that's carried. Thank you. Anything else, councillors, with regards to item 6.1? Not at this time. Okay. That brings us to item 7. There are no additional items of correspondence that need to be dealt with by council this evening. That brings us to item 8. There are no further bylaws proposal besides what lies ahead in the confirmatory bylaws. So we're not considering that at this time. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. Councillors, are there any notices of motion from those of you attending tonight? And the clerk says that there's no indication of that. That brings us to item 10. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be a benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Again, if you'd like to speak, please indicate in the chat window and the clerk will draw that to my attention. Clerk Fairfields is telling me there's someone. CAO Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned earlier during Fran's report, certainly this last 8 weeks has had a huge impact on how we conduct our business. But I would like to just take this opportunity. As many of you know, Kate Docker will be retiring at the end of May. Her last working day will, however, be this Thursday, May the 13th. Kate has been with the municipality in various roles since August 4th, 1996, when she started as a secretary for the Town of Listowel Public Works and Building Department. Kate went on to work with Parks and Recreation as her administrative assistant, and in 2005 took the role of CAO administrative assistant. In addition, Kate has expanded her duties and performs the role of Perth Meadows administrative coordinator and crossing guard coordinator. In her almost 23 years with the municipality, Kate has touched most facets of the municipality and will surely be missed. Because we're unable to celebrate Kate's retirement right now because of the restrictions in place, Kate has agreed to come back when is appropriate to celebrate with council and staff as per our retirement policy, and we look forward to that day. But I just want to be remiss in acknowledging Kate tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO Snell, and I'll make a point on Thursday on behalf of council to come in and say a few words to Kate to express our appreciation for her long and dedicated service. Any other announcements that would be of benefit to our community? Okay, that brings us to item 11. We do have one matter before us to be considered in a closed session of council. I will now read the resolution that explains and enables our action to enter closed session. That this committee proceed in camera at 9:34 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, regarding property described as Con 7 N Part Lot 25, N Part Lot 26, and PT Lot 27, North Perth. I don't know if I got all those initials right or not, but I hope so. Councillor Andreessen, can I call on you to serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, will you second that for us?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. So the public meeting is temporarily adjourned. Councilors, stay on the line. Any other staff who've not been invited to the next session, the closed session, should wrap up their affairs. We will change settings on our live stream to closed council meeting settings, which means nothing will be broadcast out except the holding screen that lets you know that we are in closed session, and we will come back into open session a little bit later. Just everyone bear with me while we set that all up. Council, stay tuned. I think we're back. Looks like we're back. I'm trusting that we're back. All right, so thank you everyone for participating in the closed. That brings us to agenda item number 12. We have nothing to report on our closed session this evening at this point. So that brings us to agenda item number 13, which is our confirmatory bylaw initiative. I have the draft of the confirmatory bylaw number 68-2020 for consideration that I'll read into the record for our action. The bylaw number 68-2020 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for that?
Yes, I would move that, your mayor.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder for that?
I can't.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate?
I can't.
We can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm listening carefully enough, Doug. You're right. Let's move on to Councillor Richardson.
I will happily second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate, please express your intention through the chat window. And we note that a few of our councillors will not be voting in this, including Deputy Mayor Kellum, who reminded me. Thank you. So let's have that vote. Can we trigger this vote, or are we doing this manually? We can't trigger it. So manually, councillors, if anyone is opposed, please so indicate through the chat window or waving your hand or something. Okay. Seeing none, that is carried. Thank you. And councillors, before we move to adjourn, is there any outstanding business that you wish to have raised at this point in the meeting? All right, so I have a resolution for our consideration for adjournment, that the council meeting adjourns at 10:15 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, May 25th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum on this one?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you be our seconder for that?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. If any are opposed, please so indicate. I see Matt Duncan scratching his nose. That's not an opposed, right? Okay, so seeing that, we are adjourned. Thank you, Council. Remember, it's not next Monday that we're meeting, but the Monday after. And until that point in time, I shall miss you all. Friends, have a good night, a good week, and be kind to each other.